Hey everyone, with the latest patch of 0.8.0, Hermes was removed from the rotation of operations to play, so I am skipping the scenario discussion analysis and skipping straight to the replays. Now, Hermes was introduced during the French arc with the introduction of the French battleships. It has limitations in the ship selection, of which you can select only the tier 7 and 8 French battleships and cruisers tier 7 of United States, France, and Great Britain. And the main objective is to escort the Bot Richelieu Rouen to the exit. Now here you'll see that the exit is at A4 with the thunderstorm starting in the southwest. There are two routes, and the other exit is at D1 with the thunderstorm starting in the northeast. And right now we have a cruiser headed to shoot down the scout planes that are coming. You have two options. One, to shoot down the scout planes, or you could leave them alive to farm more plane kills. And that decision largely depends on the composition of ships you are bringing. After you decide whether to shoot down the planes or not, the first wave of ships will start in the thunderstorm. One cruiser and two destroyers. And your first goal is to actually go into the thunderstorm once these ships are sunk.
Croiseur ennemi détruit.
Now with the first wave sunk,
Destroyer ennemi coulé.
the second wave is now on the other side, and you generally want to be going into the thunderstorm to get some cover. Now for a quick note on secondary tasks, not all of them are showing yet, but there are two things you need to do for keeping ships alive. First is, at any point in the game, you need to make sure Rouen stays above 50% health. Doesn't matter when. If its health drops below 50%, you lose a star. And other task is you have to make sure your battleship count that is not sunk has to be 3, and that does include the bot Rouen. So you can lose at most 1 battleship sunk. And other task showing right now is destroy 20 enemy ships. Now this task is not always set. There is one other possibility that could appear in its place, which relates to the next spawn, and that possibility is to sink 5 enemy battleships. The 4 that just spawned here, the Gneisenau, Scharnhorst, Bismarck, Tirpitz, and later on, the Bayern. Now if you were in the other route, you would actually be heading west along the G line, and battleships would have spawned at J6 and 7. One thing I like about taking a battleship into Hermes is you're much more capable of dealing damage, and especially on this wave of ships, you're the main damage dealer. Now, comparison between the Lyon and the Richelieu, I like the Lyon better because of its large number of guns. With 16 guns, you're much more able to do consistent salvos of 10k or more. One other thing you might find when playing a battleship is you often get ignored by these battleships, enemy battleships, and they will constantly shoot over you to damage and sink your friendly cruisers. It doesn't happen 100% of the time, but a lot of the time you will get ignored.
On a détruit un cuirassé ennemi.
A cruiser won't be dealing these large damage salvos on the battleships. You're more aiming for the superstructure and setting fires. So it's hard to do consistent damage. Now if you spec out your battleship, you don't need to, for anti-air, you don't need to be relying on your friendly cruisers to shoot down planes, as you can largely do it yourself. And that's especially helpful later. Now you've reached the rest and repair area. In the other route, you would be sitting in G5 to stop and repair. Now, briefly pausing to show you something here. Da Vinci is putting himself in front of the Rouen to block and slow down the bot once the rest and repair is done. The reason for this is on the next wave there will be 3 destroyers, and they will be shooting lots of torpedoes, and you slow down the bot Rouen so to make sure it doesn't take any torpedoes. Now, this time it turned out okay with the battleship, but we've had not so good consequences with the Rouen deviating its route and going back around in a circle. It's generally safer to do it in a cruiser, which you leave on the bow and have it push you. Here's the next wave of ships, 3 destroyers and the Bayern. The Bayern would be the last battleship you would be wanting to kill if you had the 5 battleship task. Now here I'm starting to move west, and you'll see that the torpedoes from destroyers have harmlessly gone through and not touched bot Rouen because we slowed it down. It's actually a very effective tactic to use. And here I am doing a tactic developed by someone else who plays operations regularly with us on the operations Discord. What you do with this tactic is 1 or 2 battleships will take a different route from the main group and do a flanking maneuver. And what that does is you have 1 or 2 battleships with the main group and 1 or 2 battleships doing the flanking maneuver, and what you create is a crossfire, and no matter what direction the enemy cruisers show their broadside, there's someone there to do significant damage to them. If you were in the other route, you would be heading west along the G line rather than north, and the flanking maneuver would start at F3 and 4 going north. Now, earlier I mentioned if you spec your battleship for anti-air, you can largely take care of yourself with planes. And this is the part where it's actually very important, as you are out here by yourself doing a maneuver with cruisers to shoot planes down for you. Now the last secondary task is to sink the Graf Zeppelin. And one other benefit of doing the flanking maneuver is you can spot and sink the Graf Zeppelin pretty quickly. Otherwise, if you stuck with the main group, you'd be charging through the enemy ships to go find it. Now, if you were playing a cruiser, right now you'd be seeing the enemy destroyers approaching the exit area.
3h30 envoyées par le fond.
If you were in the other route, they would be heading to D1, and the main group would be heading up north along the 1 line. And you want to make sure to sink all these destroyers so they don't do significant damage to Lyon with their torpedoes.
La bataille se termine dans 5 minutes.
The other nice thing about playing Battleship is you have a couple players who do decently. You can actually clear all the enemy ships off the map. Now, you'll see here, Lyon has left the map area and is heading for the exit. And it's basically the end of the scenario once he's about 2.5 kilometers from the exit. And you'll see that we did manage to clear the whole map of enemy ships. It's always nice when that gets done. With Hermes removed from rotation, it'll be interesting to see if they lift at least the nation restrictions on this operation when it comes out again. But until then, this is all we have to remember it by. And this is certainly a good place to grind your French battleships. That's pretty much it, folks. Hope you enjoyed this.